Hey guys. Hello, hello. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Welcome to Marriage Momentum Monday. Not Sunday, but it's Monday. How's your Monday? How's your Monday? I just want to let you guys know that we are going live as promised. I told you all that today I would be going live with a guest, a trauma therapist. So I'm really excited. Welcome, welcome. Come on in. Share this with others if you feel comfortable doing that as well. We are going to be having a live, rich discussion with a trauma therapist as my special guest today. So I'm really excited. I'm going to go ahead and invite him in here so he can join us and we can start right on time, right on time. Okay, welcome everyone else. Go ahead and let's see. Welcome everyone. Welcome. All right, so let's see how I can make sure he gets on here. Accept. Okay. It's been a while since I've done a Marriage Momentum Monday. So thank you all for joining. Hey, Tiffany. Hey, Naomi. Welcome, you guys. Thank you so much. And feel free again to share this with anyone who you think would be interested. Okay, let's see. All right. Hey, Ode. How are you? How's the baby? Hello. Hey. Okay. It's saying he's not able to join. Let's see what's going on. Connection is good. Let's see. All right, Tiffany, I'm ready too. I'm ready for this rich conversation. Oh, the baby's watching. Yay. Okay, that's good. That's really good. Baby's here. Hello. Okay, let's see. Let's see, do it this way. Invite him. The baby is here. Hello, Dave Metellus is here as well. Hello. Thanks for joining. All right, let's see what's going on with the connection. For some reason, Marken, it is not allowing you to join. Hi, Jeffrey. Pastor Jeffrey in the building. Okay, what's going on? Let's see. It says you're unable to join. So maybe let me try to do it through. I'm going to try to do it through your other account, Bedrock Counseling. Let's see if it'll let you join that way. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you guys for joining. Feel free to send this out. We are still trying to figure out how to get my guest on here. I don't know what's going on with IG. I'll send him the invite and it's not going through. All right, let's see if it'll let us go through Bedrock, which is, there we go.
There we go. How you doing?
Good. I was like, man, I know it's been a while since I've done this, but I'm like, come on, IG, come on.
My apologies. It could be my fault. I need to go back and check my settings on my Marcken Volmy IG because Bedrock, it automatically accepted it. So it could be my settings. So I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries. Yes, that's right. Because it may be something in your settings. That's why I was like, oh, let's see if we do it through your counseling practice. That
No
might be
problem.
the best way.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, for those of you who've already been here for the past few minutes, but it was not too long, so it was only about like a 5-minute delay. So thank you everyone. I see everyone's coming in, so that's really great. I want to just welcome you all. It's Marriage Momentum Monday. I'm your host, Deborah Richelieu, licensed marriage and family therapist, and today I have a very special guest, Marcken Volmy. Am I saying your name
You
right?
got it. You got it. You got it.
Awesome. Marcken Volmy, I'm so happy. We actually met at a BIPOC therapist networking event just last month, we just met. So this is super brand new, but Marcken, it's so funny. We have a lot of mutual friends like in the therapist community.
I noticed that.
So I'm like, okay, good people, okay. So that's really good. So I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you. I know Instagram is letting your followers know that you're live and my followers know that you're live. But just for those who follow me who may not be familiar with you, although we have a lot of mutual friends, could you just kind of introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background as a trauma therapist?
Sure. My name is Marcken Volmy. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I specialize in a form of therapy called EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I'm also certified in that, and I'm a consultant. And I also do another form of trauma therapy known as the flash technique. If we have time, I'll tell you a little bit about that some more. And I just love everything about trauma therapy because it tends to go much deeper than just traditional talk therapy. And I'm going to explain why during this live. No shade on talk therapy. It has its place, but just to explain why sometimes some clinicians can get frustrated and find themselves continuing to repeat themselves and make no progress. And I could explain what's going on in the mind, why they keep running into that wall. Yeah, and I've been in this field little over 10 years. Before that, I was a special ed teacher for 9 years in middle school. That was my master class.
You used to work with middle school kids.
Yeah. So that was my master class in trauma therapy.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm married, 2 daughters, ages 4 and 7. If you pay attention, you'll hear I'm a little under the weather because my 4-year-old, she's in week 3 of school, so she's already sick. So she got daddy, but I'll be okay.
Man, already. That was fast.
And I'm a recent author as well. Last month I published my first book on trauma stories. I just love everything about the field. Yeah.
Wow. Can you repeat the title of the book once again, and where can people find your book? I'll have you share it again at the end,
Sure.
But where can people find your my phone kind of.
It's titled Trauma Stories, Discovering Strength Through Our Vulnerabilities. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, everywhere online. It's also through my website, markenvolmy.com. So Google it. You'll be able to find it somewhere.
And then D. Matilda, this is Dave, Naomi's in here. They're like trauma stories. They know the book.
Yeah, those are my people. I love those people. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. What a small world. I know Naomi. And I'm telling you, we have a lot of mutual friends. So that's really cool. Dave said, show the book. By any chance you have the book with you so people can see the book cover?
I'll be right back.
He's going to get his book, guys. Yeah, show your material. Show the book. Show the people the book. So if you are just joining, we are going live today with trauma therapist Marcken Volmy. He is also an author of Trauma Stories, and he's getting the book now. The people want to see the book, so show us the book so we can support, so we can click in Amazon and find the book. There it is, Trauma Stories by Marcken Volmy.
Yes.
Licensed mental health counselor and trauma therapist. Awesome. Small world, right, Naomi? Such a small world. I'm like,
it is.
That's so crazy. I love it. But, South Florida is a very small place. So I always tell people, you're always running into someone who knows somebody that, And
Exactly.
let's see here. My husband just joined. Hey, babe. Thanks for joining. My
Okay.
husband, so supportive. He is. He's amazing. I'm always sharing about him. He is a pastor and a strong supporter of mental health and marriage and family
Good, good.
therapy and everything that I do. So he's pretty amazing. So he's on too. Thanks for joining, babe.
All right.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Let's go.
Um, let's get into it. I have a lot of questions. And I want to start off with saying I love working with couples.
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing new. If you follow my page,
Mm-hmm.
I am a certified premarital therapist
Mm-hmm.
with SYMBIS, with the SYMBIS curriculum. SYMBIS stands for Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned something when you were introducing yourself, Marken, that I have found with my couple work, which I really enjoy. But sometimes I will find that couples may bring up previous trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and the partner then finds out, wait a minute, like we've been arguing about something or we've been trying to work on our communication, but there's a trauma that is kind of like this invisible elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could simply just tell us, what is trauma? Like, define trauma for the people.
Yes. Trauma is any overwhelming circumstance that we don't have the ability to cope with or the resources. And trauma is not only the negative things that have adversely affected us, but it's also the good things we never got to experience. So if you grew up and you were never hugged, no one ever said they love you. No one ever picked you up when you had a little boo-boo and said, that's okay, and pat you on the shoulder. It's traumatic, Of course, there are severe traumas like wars, rapes, murders, near-death experiences. Those are traumatic, but believe it or not, most people with PTSD have never even been in the military. They're everyday people. Wow. Dressing up, looking like you and I. They're working professionals. They've gone through stuff, and they've convinced themselves that they've pulled themselves by their bootstrap. They're okay because it happened years ago, but they don't realize that whenever those topics come up, whenever they're triggered, they tend to tense up. They tend to feel disturbed internally, and they've gotten really great at hiding it. But inside, there's a lot of chaos going on. It could be a particular Netflix film. It could be someone makes a comment. I remember years ago, I used to work with teenagers in the foster care in group homes, and a young lady, I tapped her on the shoulder to get her attention. She flinched like she was going to hit me. And later on, reading her history, I found out she had a history of sexual abuse before coming to us. So that explains why she started like that. And one thing I always try to explain, even in my book, is that trauma resides in our nervous system, right?
What do you mean by that?
That's why when you're anxious or something triggers you, you feel your heart palpitating. That's why when you're upset, you're clenching your fist or your legs, you're shaking your leg really fast. Or sometimes it feels like everything internally in your gut just went to the bottom. And you're feeling all of these experiences internally because that's what trauma does. It has ran into the deep parts of the right side of the middle part of the brain and the brain stem. And now you're feeling it all throughout your body, right? But the average person who don't really understand it, they just can't go around and tell their family and friends, hey, I'm traumatized. I felt it in my stomach. They're going to look at you like, girl, man, boy, what's wrong with you? Get out of my face, right? But truthfully, what I like to do is, before I even jump into trauma work, I want to explain everything, to tell people all of this chaos going on internally. I want to add language to that so you don't think I'm just crazy. I don't need to tell nobody about this. There's definitely an explanation. And most of the traumas have to do with family of origin issues from when we were younger, childhood issues. If something in your past convinced you that you were inadequate or you didn't matter or you weren't good enough, you're going to see your entire worldview through that lens. Every relationship, every friendship, every career opportunity, everything that's opening up for you, you will always see it through a lens of I'm inadequate, I'm not good enough. Adding to the definition of trauma, trauma leaves a negative belief imprint on us that no one ever told us, we never asked for, but it's automatically in the deepest parts of us to where no one can convince us otherwise. And until we begin to heal, we'll realize, hold up, this is a healthy thinking. Where did I even get this from? In my job, I come in and try to help connect the dots and say, hey, this is where this is probably coming from this experience. From this experience you should have had but never got. So I know I'm giving you a long answer, but I want to tie it all in as I'm explaining it to you. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's so good. It's so good. And I really appreciate you did that, Marken, because I'm really happy and excited that just overall as a society, as a community, we have embraced mental health and being more open to kind of digging deeper into some areas that impact us in our relationships, right? Like trauma.
Yeah.
But I asked you to define it because with us being more open to the conversations around mental health and trauma, sometimes there could be some misinformation or just, it becomes like part of our modern lingo or pop culture, and it's the definition gets lost.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost become like the new buzzword. It's trending, right?
Yeah,
But
it becomes
yeah.
trendy, but to your point, like for example, I remember going into grad school, I thought the only people who initially suffered with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which you mentioned earlier, were, military folks, retired, veterans, or someone who was in a terrible car accident. But you're bringing up such a very good point, that childhood trauma that a lot of people overlook. A lot of people overlook.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. We got some comments here. That's good. 100%. Thank you guys for engaging. This is really, really good stuff. It was a lot of information, but this is why I invited Marken. I
Thank
wanted
you.
an
Thank you.
expert. I wanted a trauma expert to join us today. Okay, so with that being said, how you define trauma? Certain things that we didn't get in our childhood, for example. If someone, that 5-year-old, that 6-year-old, you said you worked with foster kids or, some kids who are in, troubling situations, didn't get that feeling, didn't get that love, didn't get to experience secure attachment. That's a term we can definitely hit on in the therapy world. And so fast forward that 5, 6, 7-year-old in foster care, maybe, kind of like a case study. Now they get into their early 20s and they are starting to date. They are starting to be more involved romantically. Can you touch on how the meat of what I wanted to focus on today was how trauma impacts our romantic relationships,
Yeah.
how it impacts how we show up in dating, how we show up in marriage. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. First of all, I do want to say this. I never. Oftentimes, when people come to me, they'll say something like, "I had a great childhood. I never had trauma." And then, as I start asking questions and peeling back the layers, I start to see all of the chaos in all relationships, not just dating. But it significantly will impact the dating relationship because that's the person who gets to see the most intimate parts of you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And oftentimes, in relationships, they're arguing over things. I'm going to touch my head to represent different parts of the brain, frontal lobe, but I'm going to try my best to explain it in everyday language. This part of the brain controls. It's the type of thing that says, you know what, my wife's gonna be home at 5 o'clock, and she told me to run these errands at Publix for her, and it's 3:30. Let me go ahead and do what I need to do now, right? So it's the part of the brain that plans, executive functioning, that helps me to walk straight, and does everything, right? And it engages my senses. So if me and my wife are arguing, we're mainly using this, but the trauma resides in our brain. When you think of the brain from this view, think of your going up a flight of steps.
Okay.
You have the brain stem, you have the middle part of the brain, and then you have the neurocortex, which leads to the front part of the brain. Me and my wife, when we're arguing, it's all this action right here, but the trauma is way back here. So we're triggering each other over things that probably occurred before we even got together, but we don't know that. But we think we're beefing about what we're discussing in the kitchen and yelling at each other about, right? So this is where therapy becomes vital because therapy helps to give language to say, you know what, Martin, when you did not run those errands for your wife, you know her history. She has issues of abandonment and rejection from childhood. Although it seems trivial to you because it was just errands at Publix, it still left her with this internal feeling of abandonment because that's where her trauma's at. And I'm looking at it like, what's wrong with you? Why you tripping? But I don't realize I've triggered something. And in that moment, something that's insignificant is getting groceries, and I failed that mission. It left her with feelings of abandonment because I haven't connected the dots. Like, I triggered something. There's still some unresolved trauma. And another example could be, I'm flying in from out of town, and my wife's running late from picking me up. But as a kid, I was always used to people letting me down, and because she's running late, I'm triggered. I'm angry, and she's looking at me like, "Why are you so upset? I'm only 15 minutes late." But something in me was triggered. Once again, the deep part of my brain that's not even registering to what's happening right now has convinced me that your wife's just like the rest of them. She let you down as well. Right? And no one's telling me this, but it's like we're preaching little sermons to ourselves.
Yes.
That's what our trauma does.
Yes.
And it feels so real. To us, it feels like 100% truth, but to the person who sees us being triggered, they're looking at us like, really? You gonna be that extra? It don't really take all that. Because that's what a trigger is. A trigger makes a bigger deal than what's really actually happening. But to the person who's triggered, it feels so real. Everyone else is the crazy person, not them, right? And therapy comes in and helps explain that what's happening right now in this moment as I'm being triggered has everything to do with an event way back that I haven't connected the dots yet. And because I haven't connected the dots, I'm taking it out on my spouse, the person who knows me in the most intimate ways. They're hitting all the buttons, lighting me up like a check engine light on the car. They're activating all the buttons, telling me you need some service, you need some maintenance, there's some things going on. Yeah. And unfortunately, if I don't have anyone to give me language to that, we continue the cycle of going in a circle, arguing about the same issues, triggering each other, and never really making progress.
Absolutely. Wow. You hit it. You hit multiple nails on the head, because the cycle of arguments, right? The cycle of arguments. Most couples come in. It's very common that they come in because, we have this argument. We're at a standstill because we keep having this cycle. We keep, he has his view, she has her view, and we're going nowhere, right? So we need help. We need intervention. We need a mediator. But you're mentioning so many things that could be popping up for someone, and use the word trigger. You promised this and you didn't follow through.
Yes.
And now it's a reminder of, just like no one else followed through here. Like my mom didn't follow through here. My dad didn't follow through here. My first love didn't follow through here, or whatever, whoever some of those primary caregivers or those primary people who we should have experienced love and affection from, they didn't provide that. So now, this person who is probably one of the most significant relationships in my life, husband, wife, fiance, or seriously dating, and now they're failing me in this area that everyone else failed me. Man, that is heavy.
It is. It is. And not just and Deborah, not just dating relationships with husbands and wives and couples, but also some of us who are young adults who have parents either from the Caribbean or other countries. Sometimes what we tend to see is because our parents or our uncles went through certain traumas, they kind of vicariously try to relive their lives through their kids. And it may sometimes show up as being very controlling in in-law issues, and being easily offended when we're trying to set healthy boundaries. That's also traumatic, to where they need to work through those issues as well. And when we're setting healthy boundaries to them, it just, from their perspective, it just looks like, after all I've done for you, this is how you're going to treat me. Wow. So I'm not trying to go off on a tangent, but I do think that can have a significant impact on couples when healthy boundaries are not set with in-laws and parents. It trickles down and it weighs down on the marriage, and then the kids feel the weight of that as well. Yeah.
That's huge. I mean, this is beyond, like you said, a couple relationship. If I never learned to have healthy boundaries with a parental figure, and then I get married, now we're talking about, Diva Tillis, mentioned it. We're talking about, some areas that, okay, now we're talking about expectations
Yes.
of a parent or an in-law. You know, they have this unspoken expectation, but now I'm married, an adult with a child or with children, and we're trying to progress to creating our own family of origin. But now I'm carrying in previous traumas, you know, unhealthy boundaries, failed expectations, and that can just, and like you said, now that's just piled into the cycle of arguing that's probably, you know, already in existence.
Absolutely. And
Man,
I know you have a lot of questions. By the way, I'm in no rush, so if we go over, I'm good, but I don't know if you have another client after this.
I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay.
At first just so you guys know, I was like, I just need 20 minutes of your time.
I can talk about this all day, so you're not inconveniencing me at all. But
Right.
another thing I wanted to talk about that I want, you know, sometimes there may be people on this call who are not in therapy and they're trying to do their own diagnostic test to see if they have unresolved trauma.
Okay.
One of the telltale signs that we may have a wound that hasn't healed yet when it comes to setting healthy boundaries with ourselves and other people. One of the things that comes up a lot for some of my current and past clients is learning to just be. I don't. I don't want them to just be a totally selfish person. But sometimes when you're learning to set healthy boundaries, you got to be a little selfish, right? And learning to put yourself first and to start taking care of yourself. Sometimes it can feel very awkward because you're so used to abandoning yourself for either your parents from childhood. Now that you're married, you're still abandoning yourself for your spouse. It almost comes across like false humility to where you never want any compliment. You never want any, you never want anyone to like love on you. You kind of stiff arm it. There's always this, everyone else deserves it, but not me. That's usually a telltale sign. There's a wound there and that person needs to heal. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You're talking about so many wounds
Go ahead.
today.
I'm gonna be quiet. I want you to get
You went so much deeper than you know I anticipated, but I appreciate it because you know you're the trauma expert here. So this is really good. And just so you all know, we have for those who are new, I see some new people are here. I am interviewing Marcken Volmy. He is a trauma therapist. And he is the owner of Bedrock Counseling, and he is the author of Trauma Stories. So just so you all know, we're talking to an expert, so it might get a little heavy, but you know, just make sure you know you're taking care of yourselves. But this is really helpful for myself as a couples therapist, and I'm sure for those who are on here as well. You know, someone shared earlier, you know, you're failing and you have no idea you failed. Someone, you know, whether it be a parent or a spouse or even a child. So that's really important. So how do you support, let me ask you this question. How do you support a spouse or even a friend who has experienced trauma and it keeps coming up, right? It's like I said, that it's the elephant in the room. It's, you know, we can't get past the conflict, or, you know, you're experiencing trust issues, or, you know, you can see that something keeps coming up for this person. They're getting triggered. It's coming up in your conversation and or conflict. How do you support that friend? How do you support that spouse or that fiance who has experienced childhood trauma?
Yes, that's a good question because the context of that is going to look very different for everyone. I think the first part is to remember that the best disposition to have is to just be present. A sense of presence. That doesn't mean that you're responsible for fixing anything, but it adds a little bit of safety to the person with unresolved trauma to know that they have you there. But the dilemma is the person with unresolved trauma starts to do what's termed as trauma dump. They continue to dump all of their issues onto you. And even if you do give them a little bit of advice, they don't take it. And when they feel triggered, they dump it all on you. And that could be a little bit overwhelming for that friend who's trying to just be there as a good support system. So I would encourage that friend to say every now and then, have you ever considered talking to someone? Especially if you as a friend are normalizing therapy and you're seeing a therapist for yourself. You can say, you know what? I've been seeing a therapist for a couple of months, and it's really helped. I really think you should inquire. I can help you even find one, but sometimes, because there's still a stigma with mental health, certain people who are dealing with unresolved trauma, they may want nothing to do with that because they fear the backlash and shame of, what if my friends and family found out I was seeing someone? I don't want them to call me crazy. So I think just continue to be there, because the two things that every trauma survivor needs is safety and connection. So your presence is a great form of safety, but the problem is that person with unresolved trauma would never be able to connect with other people because there's a disconnect within themselves with their brain and body, right? And it's not your job as the friend to fix them. It's your job to say, I'm here for you. I will cry with you. I will hold you. But really, I'm not equipped to handle it, to help you. Because if it's a real close friendship, there should be space where you can honestly say the hard things and say, look, I love you as a brother, I love you as a sister, but I don't think I'm equipped enough to handle some of the heavy things you're telling me. I will listen, but it breaks my heart to know that I can't really help you. It's almost as if my friend's leg is cut open with a big gash and he's catching an infection, and he just keeps telling me how much it hurts, and I'm like, okay, wow. Want me to get some Band-Aids? Like, he's gonna look at me like, man, you need to take me to the ER because this leg's about to get infected. If we don't deal with it, it will get amputated. And the brain, which controls everything, how much more should we look to check in on that? So continue to be a good friend, listener, but at the end of the day, we can't force another human being, adult, to go get help, right? But we can continue to point and say, hey, have you considered this support group that I know of? Have you, because traumas can be all sorts of different things. And usually support groups are a great way to give a sense of safety and connection where they see, wow, people who look like me have gone through similar things. And maybe they'll become less guarded and even look to open up. So it's so many different ways we could go with this, but at the end of the day, if it was my friend, I would be honest with them and say, I love you, but I think you should consider talking to someone.
Right. That's really good. Let me ask you, I've noticed for certain couples that I have worked with, that sometimes it is important while we work through some things in the relationship. I suggest that there's some individual work being done, right? There's some individual work being done, meaning you're meeting with me for couples counseling or for premarital counseling. And also on the side, he has his therapist, she has her therapist. Sometimes that may come off as, oh my goodness, should we break up as we work through our trauma?
Wow.
And and so I'm like, listen, that is not my job. My job is not to tell you what to do with your relationship in that regards, right? Because my job is to help you work through, kind of hold your hand and work through some issues. But what are your thoughts on that for couples who, it's clear that he's experienced trauma, she's experienced trauma. Should we, put a pause on this relationship as we work through? Or if someone on here, they're listening and they're like, hey, I'm single, but, I am like thinking about, getting into this with this person. What is your feedback? What is your guidance there?
That's a good question. The breakup, should we break up dynamic, to me, it gets harder to do. A breakup, especially if it's a marriage, it's like an emotional amputation, right? So the breakup is like you literally saying, I'm cutting my arm off, I'm cutting my leg off. Because the grieving process is going to feel like death, right? Because you and this person you invested so much. There may be kids, there may be financial investments, homes, so many other factors. And as far as breaking up, one thing I like to consider is the level of toxicity. Like, is there a physical safety issue here? Because sometimes when you're dealing, both parties have unresolved trauma to where when they come together, they're like two firecrackers. They start cussing each other out. Cops got to get called. If it's that bad, let's, for the sake of one of y'all not going to jail, let's break this. Let's put a pause, deal with our one-on-one work if both of you all want help. Now, breaking up does not mean we continue to play house or act like we're a couple, because sometimes it could be a little codependent. It means a clear break to really focus on themselves, right? Because sometimes a trauma symptom could be, I have a very needy, dependent personality because I fear being alone and having to sit with my issues. And sometimes the breakup can reveal that. So the breakup is very nuanced. I got to really know all the background information and context to even go there. But even if I'm trying to go there, I make it a suggestion because, in our field as therapists, we never just want to tell our clients, you need to do this, you need to do that. Because, but we want to put a flashlight on it and say, you might want to consider that. Oh, have you ever thought of that, right? Because truth be told, in our line of work, the first 10 minutes, we see all the issues. But it's no help to our clients if they can't see their issues.
Correct.
So I think the breakup part sometimes is needed, but for the most part, if it's entry level, we're dating, we're interested, and you see red flags, I'm going to say just run because it is so many different layers to unravel and peel back, having to work through so much trauma. And I'll tell anyone who's considering a serious dating relationship, a serious marriage relationship, do some one-on-one trauma work, serious premarital counseling work, because at the end of the day, it's just two people with a lot of their own baggage coming into a relationship, right? And at the end of the day, we're all going to have baggage, but I'd rather come in with two little briefcases than several big pieces of suitcases like I'm moving, right? So the more we work on our issues, our baggage begins to shrink, right? We all have baggage, so we might as well deal with it. So if we are looking to do tie the knot and live happily ever after, that we're trying to minimize the amount of stuff we need to bring to the table to deal with. Yeah.
I think that is so key, trying to at least minimize what you bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
Because that is a true reality. There's nothing more true than what you just said. Like every couple, every relationship is two human beings, it's two imperfect people coming together. Y'all coming with baggage. So let's be clear. Let's be very clear. But I like what you said, trying to minimize it. And I use the word, coming in sober-minded, coming in knowing that, okay, this is what he has dealt with in the past, what she's dealt with in the past. So, at least we are aware and we're not blinded, we're not blindsided, during conflict or during communication. So I got some things here in the comments. Shrink the baggage. Yes, exactly. Let's shrink the baggage as much as we can. Definitely a word. Yes, none of that work is in vain. Absolutely. None of your work is in vain. All of it matters. All of it counts for you to be a healthy individual, a healthy partner, a healthy future parent. You touched on this earlier. I wanted to ask you about this.
Sure.
Oh man, I have so many questions. How can trauma impact, and this is so broad, so I know, so answer it according to your experience. How can trauma impact differences in parenting, right? Because you mentioned earlier about the childhood wounds. So one parent could have, these kind of childhood wounds, rejection, abandonment, and then you have another one who maybe that was not their experience. They grew up in a two-parent home and, they grew up fairly healthy and, so how can that impact that trauma, one having that trauma, one maybe not so much, how can that impact their differences in how they parent and now raise their children, the next generation?
Great question. I could come at this from so many angles, but I do want to start from the angle of intergenerational trauma because it is a real thing how we repeat what we've experienced if we don't heal, whether good or bad. And oftentimes what will happen is, you ever hear people say, oh my gosh, I'm becoming like my mother. I'm becoming like dad. There's some truth to that because there are our parents or whoever raised us, whatever caregiver, they are our first they're our first blueprint of what parenting looks like. Although I'm a trauma therapist, I go to therapy myself because this line of work I deal with, I deal with some very, very dark stuff. I want to make sure that the best version of me is showing up for me and my family. And I remember one of my triggers, because I'm really transparent, it's in the book, but I'll tell you, I had this tendency that when I felt like my little 7 or 4-year-old were disrespecting me, I'll have a tendency to yell. And as I'm yelling, I'm really reliving a lot of what was done to me from my mother. I love her, but that's how she communicated. And I normalized that. I thought it was normal. And then when I got to the root of these traumatic issues that I never resolved, I realized there was so much shame that was tied into me being yelled at as a kid. And my kids were hitting those buttons. And that's why I was repeating the process. And when I healed and I unloaded from the shame from childhood, one day my 7-year-old came up to me. She's like, "Daddy, you don't yell anymore." All right. I was like, wow. Right. It's, because kids, they're little mirrors. They're going to reflect whatever we haven't dealt with or whatever we have dealt with. If I'm a very overly anxious person, don't be surprised if your little kid picks up that anxious personality, because they are mirroring mama and daddy. Right. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is if I went through something horrible and I haven't healed, let's just say my child experience was some type of sexual assault, some type of sexual abuse. Just the thought, just hearing my kids talk about everyday things like we went on this field trip, a kid in class tapped me on the shoulder or pushed me, or we were playing around, I'm going to automatically go into, oh my goodness, who hurt my kid? Who hurt my child? I'm going to be hyper vigilant. That's the counseling term, which is really, I'm so guarded. I'm on high alert like a soldier at war. I'm ready to defend my kids at all costs. My nervous system doesn't know how to relax. I'm always expecting the worst possible outcome, either for me or for my kids. And granted, you do want to be wise and be alert as the parent and always seek out the best interest for your kid. But if you're always on alert to where you're always thinking something bad is around the corner lurking, think how exhausted your nervous system is. Because it's like you're a soldier on guard, never get a chance to sleep. You're going to get tired. So oftentimes, and this is what trauma does, and we don't deal with it, it starts to manifest as actual chronic illness. It starts to show up as, I'm always tired, I feel lethargic, I'm feeling fatigued, which can be an early onset of depression. And sometimes it can be to where I'm starting to deal with a lot of heart palpitations. I need to get my heart checked out. Maybe I'm stressed out. It could be a lot of anxiety, and if you don't deal with it, it could even lead to you getting a stomach ulcer. So I can go take it a whole different way, but I'm trying to keep it on parenting. So,
no, that's good though. I like how you brought the link of, okay, this might start with, okay, I yelled at my kids, and but now we've got to a stomach ulcer.
Yes.
But it's an important link though. It's an important link how something can start off as a mental health issue and it manifests as a physical health emergency in crisis.
Absolutely. And I do want to say one last part. I want to, for those who are listening, someone on the call may think, you know what? Will we ever heal from our traumas? Yes. But healing for mental health survivors, it's not in the past tense. It's always present tense. Healing, right? Because there's always new aspects. There's always more room to grow and learn. And sometimes, for me, healing looks like I realize I'm being triggered. I'm noticing what's going on internally. I notice my heart's racing. I notice I need to walk away a little bit, do some deep breathing. And something I tell my clients a lot that works is when you start to notice things in you are starting to light up, before you get offended, get curious, because you can't be mad and curious at the same time. So I started exploring, say, okay, why I'm getting so activated right now? What's going on? What just happened?
Wow.
When I start having those self-dialogue, I realized, oh, okay, that's what it is. My wife triggered me. I took it out on so-and-so. And we start connecting the dots because now we're paying more attention of all of the internal chaos that's going on within us. And when it starts to rise up again, we're able to deal with it, calm it down, and remind everything within us that we're in control, not these emotions, not these thoughts, and we can get a handle of everything.
Yeah. Right. Right. No, that's good. Those sound like some really good coping skills you just
Hmm.
offered
Yeah.
for your clients, for those who may not be familiar with that. So can you talk about some more, some other coping skills you typically would recommend for your clients who have dealt with trauma or they are on a journey to of healing? I like how you said that because sometimes you come in and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go to therapy and get fixed and they're gonna heal me and I literally have clients who are like, all right, I'm ready to be therapized. And I'm like,
It's never that
it's
linear. No,
funny,
no, no.
but it's not like, no, this is a journey. So can you
Yeah.
talk to that? Talk to, what kind of coping skills are helpful for those who have experienced trauma or they're in their healing journey to their healing journey with trauma.
Yes. I that's a great question. I like to start off with um, uh, to remind all my clients. I preface this by letting them know I'm rooting for them. I'm wishing them the best. But they, number one, oftentimes when we have unresolved trauma, we think too much. We give too much attention to ourselves.
Mm,
Let me explain to you.
okay.
Um, if sometimes my trauma symptoms could have me to look at the world from a lens of I'm the victim, everyone's out to get me, everyone's hating on me, nobody really likes me. And it could have been one person that done this to us, but now we're in absolutes. Everybody don't like me. God, why I'm
Mm,
always having hard times? Why is this always happening to me? Right? And it could have been
mhm,
one experience, but the impact was so intense
mhm,
that now we're generalizing that this has always been the case and things will never be better, right? So
mm.
I tell people when we look at it from that vantage point, I remind them we're really not that important, including myself. And
Oh,
not in a negative way, but from a perspective that says people are not always thinking about you. Like
ah,
24/7,
okay, okay.
people are not, you're not on people's mind 24/7. Because most of the
Okay.
clients I have who deal with anxiety, they tend to overthink things and then they think everyone else is thinking like that. And I got to remind them that
Mm,
all of these marathon sprints you're running in your mind,
mhm,
that the person next to you is not overly thinking about you that way. So let's
mm,
back up a little bit. And sometimes the trauma symptoms can look like self-loathing. I'm a horrible person. I'm never going to be good
mm,
enough. It's always my fault.
mhm,
Things will never get better, right?
mhm,
We're still looking internally at us.
mhm,
So sometimes I got to shake the client and say, hey, we need a healthier perspective. We need a perspective that says, it can't always be about me. I
mm,
got to find somebody else to connect with. Because if the pandemic didn't show us anything, it showed us our desperate need for human to human connection. All right.
yes.
So healing for healing from trauma, therapy is like 80% of it, but it ain't everything.
Mhm,
We need human to human connection. I need a friend to text me and say, hey, bro, I'm just checking in on you. You've been
mhm,
on my
mhm,
mind, man.
mhm,
How can I pray for you? What can I do this week for you? Do you need any encouragement? Sometimes it could be just getting a hug from a loved one or a friend, right? Because that releases oxytocin in the body, that chemical, that healthy chemical. Sometimes the coping skill can look like I'm going to go outside. Maybe this ain't the best time of year to do this because it's Florida heat is serious.
yes.
But I'm going to go outside either around early in the morning as the sun's setting. I'm going to walk the park a little bit, get a little sunlight,
Yes.
because it releases another chemical in the brain called serotonin, which regulates our mood. Um,
Mhm,
and and another thing you can do is self-care as part of the coping skills as well.
mhm.
Um, Take a day off, love on yourself a little bit, get you some. You don't got to go to the spa if you got a tub. Get some essential oils, some eucalyptus, fill that tub up, love
Love
on
eucalyptus.
yourself, read a good book, get some dark chocolate, watch your favorite Netflix, go to the beach,
Yes.
walk that sand barefoot, taking that salt water. We don't have to fly to Hawaii. We got paradise in our backyard for those of us in
It's
South
true.
Florida, right?
It's true for those of us who live in South Florida.
But here's the biggest
Mm,
part. The biggest part for every person going through trauma work, if you're in therapy, your therapist is going with this more in depth. Um, uh, Sit with every thought, every emotion.
mm,
Don't try to medicate it with business, sex, drugs, or alcohol, but sit with it. Stop running from it,
mm,
right? And sitting with it does not mean I'll give you an example. An unhealthy way to express anger is for me to get mad, cuss people out, yell, act very irate. The cops are called, now I'm going to jail. That's unhealthy. But what is healthy is I sit with it and I start noticing, okay, my heart's racing. I'm clenching my fist. I'm so angry right now. What else am I noticing in my body? Okay, all right. I feel like if this person was right here, I might really put my hands on them right now. I'm processing in real time while noticing what's going on in my body. And what you'll realize what happens after about 5 or 10 minutes, you start to calm down because you're paying attention to the trauma that's being activated internally. We have a saying in the trauma world, whatever the mind, whatever the mind suppresses, the body expresses, right? So a healthy way to deal with this stuff is to let it take its course and pay attention to it. And you'll notice what begins to happen is that we'll gain a lot more control over our thoughts and things. We'll still get triggered, but we'll be able to calm those triggers down much more quicker. And also something as simple as being still and quiet with all technology turned off for just 5 to 10 minutes every morning or every night. Of course, I could get into deep breathing as well to help activate the relaxation part of the nervous system. That stuff really works. But at the end of the day, I like to give my clients a toolbox. What works best for you? Because at the end of the day, everyone's not going to do everything. But if we can find 2 or 3 and do them, whether that be journaling, deep breathing, exercising, I like to give that complete framework with therapy so that we have no excuse. If we're not healing, either we're not really doing this to fidelity or something else that's deeper is wrong that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing some of those coping skills along with, therapy, like as you shared, because it's a combination and it's person to person, right? So one thing that may work for one client may not work for another client. And I also, I want to respect your time and thank you all so much for joining on here. We're here with Marcken Volmy, trauma therapist, talking about how trauma impacts us in our relationships. My husband put, whatever the mind suppresses, the body expresses. Yes, absolutely, right? Absolutely. Maybe sweating, maybe you're, shaking, maybe you realizing you're huffing and you're puffing and you're now yelling at someone. All those things could be happening. So I love that you shared those coping skills. I want to ask you, as a believer, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, and prayer is has been a huge part of my journey. You shared, you're in therapy. I started therapy in 2020 because it was a lot. And my faith for me is a part of it's in my toolbox, my faith, prayer. Can you talk about how faith plays a role in trauma work, or how you've used it in trauma work with your clients who are believers?
Yes. Unfortunately, our code of ethics don't give us much framework to really broadcast our faith onto other clients. But if they're open to it, I'll always share, let them know my faith as a Christian as well. But I think at the end of the day, just for me personally, it helps. It frees me personally of all anxiety to know that I'm not the last stop of everything that I'm trying to work through personally or also with my clients. Because if I was the end all be all, think how anxious I would be, right? If God wasn't in my life. So I always remember there's something greater and bigger than me that I always got to say, you know what? Things getting kind of heavy. I got to cast these things onto you. And if my clients are of faith, I try to steer them the same way if they're open to it. But I think at the end of the day, we are such complex creatures. I don't care how long you've been in school as a mental health clinician. There are just intimate nuances and parts of us that the School of Psychology and Mental Health will never discover. And we got to just leave those elements and tidbits to God and trust him with it, from my perspective. And I'm okay with that, right? Because I'm not trying to be the end all be all, have all the answers. Because if I start trying to have that mindset, then I'm trying to play God. And I don't want his job. He's doing a good enough job without me, right? But if my clients are open to that, it definitely becomes a mutual discussion. one that I think could be really enriching. But if they're not a person of faith, I definitely try to keep it clinical. But if they ask me where I stand at faith-wise, I have no problems disclosing to them, because at the end of the day, what helps me to build a rapport with my clients is honesty, right?
Yep.
Honesty as far as they know if they ask me a question, they can always get a straight answer. And it builds that level of trust. And it just helps us to be connected, even if we disagree on a particular topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for
No
sharing
problem.
that perspective. Before we end off, and listen, this has been so enriching. Thank you,
Yeah.
Tiffany. Tiffany's like, this is such a powerful and much needed discussion. And we are barely scratching the surface. We got to end right here. But let me know if you guys want a part 2, if Marken is available. Let me know. Drop in the chat part 2 if you want a part 2 of trauma and relationships. You want to hear from an expert, how trauma impacts us as individuals, how it shows up in our conversation, how it shows up in our communication. Drop part 2 in the chat if you want to do this again, and I will ask Marken on a later date to do this again. So drop part 2 if you want part 2 in the chat, so he knows it's needed. He's not gonna know this is needed if y'all don't say nothing.
Yeah.
All right, okay, keep it going. Drop part 2 in the chat if you guys want to do this again, and I will, meet with Marken, and we can go ahead and set a date. I didn't ask him. I'm asking y'all, so now I'm asking him. You see, the people want more information.
We'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen. Awesome, yeah. Awesome. And if you joined later and you didn't grab this earlier, Marken is a trauma therapist, and he's also the author of Trauma Stories. You got the book. You want to show them the cover of the book really quick? You can find it on Amazon. There is the book. I'm going to get my copy. So hopefully you guys get your copy too, okay? And get it for a friend. Get it for that friend that's always calling you, and you're like, I can only do so much. You need to call Marken, schedule an appointment. Okay. So I want you to share this before we end tonight. You mentioned a modality of trauma, yes. EMDR, earlier. Again, I'm so happy. We are, just as a community, I'm Haitian. I grew up Haitian American, in a Black and brown community. And, I cannot say that we were always open to the topics of mental health and trauma, but now we're so much more open. And again, sometimes these words get lost in pop culture, or if it's trending. So break it down to us. What is EMDR, and how is it helpful to those who are, interested or open to doing trauma work?
EMDR, I mentioned it earlier, it stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. It's a famous form of, it's evidence-based, which means it's been vetted by all of the top mental health communities, researchers. It's been around for 40 plus years. And it involves the type of movement called bilateral stimulation. It started off with eye movement, but that's not the only way to do it. Your eyes are moving laterally as you're thinking about a particular topic, but you're not being hypnotized. I always want to preface that, because people are like, if my eyes moving left or right, what are you doing? You trying to put me in some trance? No, it's not that at all.
Thank you for breaking that down.
Yeah, but that's not the only way to do it. So you can the brain can get that same level of action through shoulder taps, knee taps, following a light bar, putting audio that's playing left ear, right ear, holding on to what's called tappers, where one's vibrating in the left hand and right hand. And what it's doing is it's actually activating the left and right side of the brain at the same time as you're thinking about a particular topic. And what you'll realize when that happens is you start to activate the brain's natural healing mechanism. The same way God allows the body to scab up when you bleed, the mind can also heal itself as well too. But this is where therapy comes into play to help it to get like that. I do very little talking, and all I do is every 30 seconds or so, when the ball stops, I ask, and we're going through a particular topic, the ball's coming, and I ask the client, what came up for you? They'll either say, you know what, I felt physically disturbed, or they'll say, you know what, I had a flood of thoughts that came in. And what's happening is the parts of the mind that was damaged during the trauma is starting to move heal itself, and the trauma that was stored in the nervous system starts to loosen up. The body actually metabolizes it naturally. So, and then the thoughts begin to change, where if you went into thinking, I'm not good enough, halfway through the session, you start to say, I am good enough. Yeah, it's like a light bulb came on, right? I never get tired of seeing that. It's like the light bulb came on, but I didn't have to talk to you for an hour to try to beat it into your mind. It naturally happened because the mind, it's those neural pathways that were damaged because of the traumatic experience, they're starting to heal, and now you're starting to have a clear perspective. It's almost like you're driving through heavy rain. It's so bad you can't see what's in front of you, but as the rain starts to clear up, your front windshield gets a bit clearer. That's what starts to happen to the deep parts of the mind when the maladaptive memories and thoughts are buried. And it's, to me, it's a beautiful thing to see. Yeah. But what made me passionate about this is, I say it in the book, I talk about it in the book, I was a client before I was ever a therapist. So I experienced this as a client because I had a lot of PTSD when I was younger. When I was in college, I was robbed at gunpoint, sexual trauma when I was younger, and having to work through those things. EMDR did it for me in a couple of sessions, and after that, I was like, I'm hooked. I want to get trained in everything this has to do, and I'm so passionate about giving people that little bit of experience, or if not me, just pointing them somewhere where they could go, because I want them to experience a bit of that as well. Yeah,
that is so good, and I thank you for sharing your your experience with trauma work as well, and how it has been very helpful to your journey, to your healing journey as well. So if people are on here and they say, you know what, I want to book a session with Marcken Volmy today because I want to use, I've been doing some stuff, but it's not helping. I want to tap into this EMDR. I want to book a session. I want to start my trauma journey, whether I'm single, whether I'm dating, I'm married, whatever the case is, it's a situationship, and that's trauma in and of itself. Wherever they are at in life, and they're on this live or they're watching the replay, how do they get in touch with you so they can book a session or, schedule a consultation or even buy your book? How do they get in touch with you?
They can just, nowadays, I have business cards, but that era is quickly fading away. They could DM me either through my Marcken Volmy IG or through my Bedrock Counseling. I'm on Facebook as well as both. I'm on TikTok. They can call me. I have my website, bedrockcounseling.com. I actually have another website, markenvolmy.com, for anything speaking engagements, the books. So definitely both of my Instagram pages have everything in the link in bio. That's probably the best place to contact me. And I always like to say this last part, when they do call for a free phone consultation, the win, W-I-N, is not that they make me their therapist. The win is that they have made it up in their resolve that they want to take ownership of their mental health. If not with me, I have no problems pointing them in another direction, because I'm just one person. That's Deborah. I don't look at you as my competition, because everyone is broken. There's more than enough people out here who needs our help. So whatever I can do to help you, help someone else out, to find that right connection, because I'm not a fit for everyone. But if I could at least encourage you and be that support for you, to me, that's the win. So that discovery call is not, the final outcome is not that you become my client. It's that we figure out how to get you into on someone's couch or in front of someone's computer screen, whether that be me or someone else. Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. And that's why my husband, just dropped in the comments, we need more of you.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yes, it's true. It's so true. And I love that you said that. And I'm so happy we met back at the last month. Yeah. Just so many of us at the BIPOC therapist event, because you're right. Everyone will not be my client, and that's totally okay. But part of our ethics is to do what's best for our clients. So now being connected to you, I could always refer a client to you, maybe a family, a friend, a church member who is looking for a trauma therapist, or when I told you, he probably
You
thought I
did.
was crazy, y'all.
You did.
When I first met him, I was like, oh my God, you're a unicorn. A Black trauma therapist. I was like, and he's a male? Like, wow. Where did they get you? But it's honestly, like you said, clients had asked me whether it was a couple and, the husband he felt more comfortable with, a Black male therapist or a family member or a friend. I was at the gym or, out just talking to people and they're like, well, do you know any male therapists? And I'm like, no. But as soon as I find one, I will let you know.
I have one now.
Yeah. So when I found him, I was like, wow.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you guys so much for jumping on here with us and being a part of the conversation. Let's, just in case, I forgot to mention this earlier, if anyone had any questions, we wanted to get any questions out. If anyone had any questions on trauma or just anything that you mentioned during the live, maybe we have, do you have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions?
I have time, so yeah, they could throw them my way.
Okay, awesome. Let me see if I missed any comments here. Thank you, Nidra, for joining. I'm passing the information along. We need more Black male therapists. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You guys are rare. You guys are so rare. Let's see here. Hey, Natasha. Thanks for sharing. Let's see if I missed anything else here. I dropped his in the chat. Marcken Volmy. You can find him on his page or he is the owner of Bedrock Counseling. You can find him on that page too. Anyone had any questions? You can drop it in the chat if you had any questions. And if not, it's okay. You guys already asked that you want a part 2. So Marcken, I'm going to email you so I can request the part 2. And for those of you who are aware, I have a YouTube channel. So you know what? I think I'm going to do the part 2 on YouTube so it can stay up because we can save the live on Instagram, but I might do it on YouTube. So I'll get with you, Marcken, to figure out what that would look like. Okay, last call. Any questions?
I see one question.
Oh, wait.
I think it's your husband. What's a great first step in dealing with trauma?
Oh, good one.
It's a good question. I think the great first step, a really good first step is becoming aware. We can't treat anything if we're not aware. So the very fact something's not right, something's off, that's key. Now the question is, what are you going to do about that? And I always tell anyone who's in search of healing from their unresolved trauma, the onus is on you to get the help, but the onus is not on you to fix yourself. Like this notion that I'm supposed to pull myself on my bootstraps, fix myself, heal myself. That is what we say because we're really trying to protect ourselves because we've been injured and we don't trust our vulnerability in the hands of someone else, right? So I definitely have compassion for that, but there's no reality. That's no one's reality. We all need someone. We all need help. Even me, the trauma therapist, I have a therapist, right? So once we become aware, it's getting help and trying to not make our close friends and family our therapists, because if you don't realize it or not, it's very overwhelming. It's actually making some of them anxious. You definitely want them as a support, but the heavier things, try to transfer that over to someone who's more equipped to deal with that.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I appreciate you shared that. Family and friends, that's probably one of the first things I ask when I'm doing an intake, the first session, what does your support system look like, right? You want them to still be there as a support, but, some people are saying it in the chat, it's very overwhelming because I'm equipped, right? Like you said earlier, we've rushed into the ER room and I'm not a surgeon and, you have a laceration. I can't help you. I want you to get help as soon as possible, but that I'm not equipped. So I think that's very important that you shared the distinction, family, friends, your support system, they're there to, cheer you on and to support you, but they just may not be equipped. So
Exactly. Yeah.
sharing that, you're noticing things are coming up for you. You're noticing maybe you're having outbursts. You're noticing, you're sweating heavily when you walk into a certain situation, or, you're having flashbacks, nightmares, different things like that, that's impacted your daily life. So noticing it is first and foremost is a good first step.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see.
Another question. Oh, okay. I think it's a comment. Be specific about the types of support we need and who is suitable to give it. Yes. We're not mind readers. We can't help what's not really being disclosed. So definitely you want to be specific. Yeah, and really seek out that help. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
That's it.
I think that's it. But it's definitely you're needed. Your
Thank
work
you.
is needed. Your specialty is needed. And I'm so excited. People have already shared in the chat they want a part 2. So I will get with you so we can get that. And I'll save the live as well. So, hopefully people can play this back and find you and find Bedrock Counseling, get the book, Trauma Stories.
Thank you. Thank you.
Along their journey and just helping them out.
And I also want to say, Deborah, I consider it a privilege and an honor for having me. So I appreciate it. I don't take these lives lightly because you never know. We probably said something over this live that really encouraged someone who's really struggling. You just never know. Yeah. So I appreciate it. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. And with that, we'll end it. Thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you guys next time.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Marken. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.